In the heart of Bethany, where dusty streets wind between sun-baked stone houses, I remember the day everything changed. My name is Simon, a neighbor who witnessed an extraordinary moment that would forever alter my understanding of worth, service, and divine love. The house of Martha and Mary was always a place of warmth, but on this particular day, the atmosphere felt different. Jesus had arrived, and with him came a profound sense of peace that seemed to challenge everything we understood about effort and rest. I watched from nearby, captivated by the unfolding drama that would reveal something deep about human nature and spiritual truth. Martha's hands moved with frantic energy, her movements a blur of preparation and anxiety. Pots clattered, bread was kneaded, surfaces were wiped, each action a desperate attempt to create the perfect environment. Her love was genuine, but her method was suffocating. Every movement screamed of an internal pressure, a relentless drive to prove her worth through constant activity. In stark contrast, Maria sat quietly, her entire being focused on Jesus. While her sister worked herself into exhaustion, she remained still, drinking in every word, every nuance of the Master's presence. The tension was palpable, not just between the sisters, but within the very fabric of human experience. I recognized something universal in this moment. It wasn't just about Martha and Maria. It was about every person who has ever felt trapped between doing and being, between proving and receiving. The struggle was visceral, deeply personal, yet remarkably collective. Jesus' response would be revolutionary. Not a harsh rebuke, but a gentle revelation that would challenge everything we believed about service, love, and spiritual connection. His words would cut through the noise of human striving, revealing a profound truth about our relationship with the divine. What I witnessed that day was more than a simple domestic scene. It was a metaphor for the human condition, our constant struggle between performance and presence, between earning love and simply receiving it. Martha's anxiety, Maria's stillness, Jesus' compassionate wisdom. These were not just individual experiences, but universal truths that would resonate across generations. The afternoon light filtered through the simple home, casting long shadows that seemed to dance with the weight of unspoken emotions. Something profound was about to be revealed, a truth that would challenge our deepest assumptions about worth, service, and spiritual connection. Little did I know how this moment would become a mirror, reflecting the internal battles we all face, the endless cycle of striving, the fear of being inadequate, the desperate need to prove our value through constant action. In this single, transformative moment, everything was about to change. As the dust settled and the intensity of the moment lingered, I began to understand something profound about the invisible burdens we carry. My own experiences suddenly crystallized, revealing the intricate landscape of human vulnerability that Jesus was illuminating through Martha and Maria's interaction. Emotional labor often goes unrecognized, a silent currency we exchange constantly. I realized how many of us construct elaborate facades of busyness, mistaking constant motion for meaningful contribution. Our culture celebrates productivity as a virtue, transforming genuine service into a performance, a relentless mechanism of proving our worth through exhaustion. Beneath Martha's frantic preparations lay a deeper narrative of internal struggle. Her actions weren't merely about hospitality. They represented a complex psychological dance of validation and fear. Every chopped vegetable, every perfectly arranged cushion whispered an unspoken plea. See me. Validate me. Prove that my efforts matter. Intriguingly, Jesus didn't condemn her work. His gentle redirection suggested something far more nuanced. Understanding the motivation behind our actions matters more than the actions themselves. He saw through the external choreography of Martha's movements, recognizing the internal turbulence driving her restlessness. Psychological research confirms what this ancient narrative intuitively reveals. Our need for external validation often masks deeper insecurities. We construct elaborate systems of self-worth based on constant productivity, believing that our value is directly proportional to our output. Yet, true significance emerges not from what we do, but from who we are at our core. Observing Maria's posture, calm, present, fully engaged, I recognized an alternative approach to existence. Her stillness wasn't passive. It was a profound act of intentional presence. She understood something revolutionary. Connection transcends performance. By simply being, she was participating more meaningfully than Martha's hyperactive servicing. The narrative invites us into a radical reimagining of personal value. Our worth isn't a mathematical equation of tasks completed, but an intrinsic state of being. We're not machines designed for constant production, but complex beings capable of profound connection, reflection, and rest. This moment captured something universal: the human tendency to confuse activity with meaning, motion with progress. Jesus offered a gentle but transformative perspective. Peace isn't achieved through perpetual motion, but through intentional presence. Our value doesn't diminish when we pause. Paradoxically, it deepens. In that simple house in Bethany, a timeless truth was revealed, one that would continue resonating through generations, challenging our most fundamental assumptions about purpose, service, and human significance. As I reflected on the profound encounter I'd witnessed, I realized the deeper psychological landscape of human striving was far more complex than mere surface-level activity. Our internal narratives of worth create intricate labyrinths of expectation and performance that silently drain our spiritual reserves. Modern neuroscience reveals fascinating parallels with this ancient narrative. Chronic stress triggered by constant performance expectations fundamentally rewires neural pathways, creating perpetual anxiety circuits. We unconsciously program ourselves into belief systems that demand continuous validation, mistaking hyperactivity for meaningful existence. Neurologically speaking, our brains interpret rest as potential vulnerability. Every pause feels like potential failure, triggering primitive survival mechanisms that push us toward constant motion. We've evolutionarily conditioned ourselves to equate stillness with risk, transforming peaceful contemplation into perceived threat. Personal growth emerges when we interrupt these neurological patterns. Intentional interruption requires remarkable courage, choosing presence over productivity, connection over competition. Each deliberate pause represents a revolutionary act against internalized performance metrics that consume our inner landscape. Psychological research demonstrates how deeply ingrained these patterns become. Individuals frequently construct elaborate narratives justifying perpetual motion, creating sophisticated defense mechanisms that mask underlying emotional vulnerabilities. We design complex external frameworks to avoid confronting internal landscapes of uncertainty and unresolved emotional needs. Professional burnout rates increasingly validate these observations. Contemporary workplace cultures normalize exhaustion, transforming human potential into mechanical output. We've created systemic structures that reward continuous labor while systematically depleting individual resilience. Interestingly, indigenous cultures and contemplative traditions offer alternative paradigms. They understand rhythm as cyclical, recognizing periods of intense activity require corresponding periods of regenerative rest. Western paradigms frequently misinterpret this natural cadence, generating unsustainable performance expectations. Neuroplasticity provides profound hope. Our brains can redesign habitual response patterns through intentional practice. Mindfulness, meditation, and reflective practices offer neurological reset mechanisms, gradually rewiring stress response systems toward more balanced engagement. Ultimately, transformative change requires radical self-compassion. Recognizing our inherent worth independent of productivity demands profound emotional intelligence. We must courageously challenge internalized narratives that equate human significance with continuous achievement. The invitation remains open. Interrupt your habitual patterns. Discover profound liberation waiting beyond constant performance. Embrace the revolutionary act of simply being, fully present, authentically vulnerable, unapologetically human. As the golden afternoon light filtered through the simple home, I found myself witnessing a profound psychological transformation. The tension between external expectations and internal peace became a living, breathing reality before my eyes. Martha's frantic movements revealed something far deeper than mere hospitality. They exposed the intricate psychological mechanisms we use to shield ourselves from vulnerability. My observations went beyond surface-level interactions. Each hurried step, each clattered pot spoke volumes about the human condition of perpetual performance. We're wired to believe that constant motion equates to value, that our worth is measured by the exhaustion we generate. Yet Jesus' gentle presence challenged this fundamental misconception. Neurological research suggests our brains create elaborate defense mechanisms against perceived inadequacy. We choreograph elaborate routines of busyness, mistaking movement for meaningful engagement. The irony lies in how these very mechanisms prevent us from experiencing genuine connection, the very thing we desperately seek. Consider how workplace cultures inadvertently reinforce this destructive pattern. Performance metrics become invisible chains, binding individuals to a relentless cycle of proving and performing. We've transformed human potential into a transactional experience, where personal value is calculated through measurable outputs. Interestingly, indigenous wisdom offers a radically different perspective. These cultures understand human experience as cyclical, recognizing that periods of intense activity require corresponding moments of regenerative stillness. Western paradigms frequently misinterpret this natural rhythm, generating unsustainable expectations that gradually erode individual resilience. Psychological resilience emerges when we interrupt these ingrained patterns. Each deliberate pause represents a revolutionary act against internalized performance metrics. We're not just choosing rest, we're reclaiming our fundamental right to exist beyond productivity. The invitation becomes clear: interrupt your habitual narrative. Recognize that your worth transcends constant achievement. Embrace the radical act of being fully present, authentically vulnerable, unapologetically human. My perspective shifted dramatically. What I witnessed wasn't just a domestic interaction, but a profound metaphor for human psychological liberation. The space between constant motion and intentional presence became a threshold of transformative potential. Neuroplasticity offers remarkable hope. Our brains possess an incredible capacity to redesign habitual response systems. Mindfulness, reflective practices, and intentional pauses act as neurological reset mechanisms, gradually rewiring stress response patterns toward more balanced engagement. As the afternoon light continued its slow dance across the room, I realized we're constantly negotiating an internal landscape of expectations, fears, and unspoken vulnerabilities. The real revolution happens not in grand gestures, but in those quiet moments of choosing presence over perpetual performance. I watched her hands trembling, recognizing something deeper than physical exhaustion. Martha's struggle represented a silent epidemic plaguing modern souls, the relentless pursuit of perceived perfection through perpetual labor. Societal conditioning runs far deeper than most recognize. We're systematically trained to equate personal value with productivity, transforming human potential into mechanical output. My observations revealed a profound psychological mechanism where individuals weaponize busyness as a shield against vulnerability. Professional environments amplify these internal dynamics exponentially. Corporate cultures reward hyperactivity, creating intricate reward systems that reinforce unsustainable engagement patterns. Employees internalize these metrics, gradually sacrificing emotional wellness for marginal professional advancement. Neurological research illuminates fascinating interconnections between stress responses and perpetual striving. Chronic hyperactivity triggers complex hormonal cascades, gradually rewiring neural pathways toward heightened anxiety states. What begins as adaptive survival mechanism transforms into debilitating psychological constraint. Emerging psychological frameworks suggest alternative engagement models. Mindfulness practices offer neurological recalibration techniques, enabling individuals to interrupt habitual stress response patterns. These interventions represent sophisticated self-regulation strategies, providing tangible pathways toward emotional equilibrium. Cultural anthropology provides remarkable insights into alternative paradigms. Indigenous communities frequently structure social systems around collective well-being, emphasizing regenerative rest as essential survival mechanism. Western individualistic models systematically devalue recuperative experiences, treating recovery as peripheral rather than fundamental. Generational trauma compounds these psychological dynamics. Inherited survival strategies passed through familial systems create intricate emotional landscapes where overachievement becomes unconscious coping mechanism. Each hyperactive response represents a complex communication channel expressing unresolved relational narratives. Economic pressures exponentially intensify these psychological mechanisms. Precarious employment environments demand continuous performance, transforming human potential into transactional commodities. Individuals internalize systemic uncertainties, generating sophisticated psychological defense strategies that masquerade as productivity. Emerging workplace research challenges traditional productivity paradigms. Progressive organizations increasingly recognize human potential beyond quantifiable metrics, implementing holistic wellness frameworks that prioritize individual regeneration. These approaches represent profound structural reimaginings of professional engagement. Technological acceleration introduces additional psychological complexity. Digital platforms create perpetual accessibility, blurring boundaries between professional and personal domains. Individuals navigate increasingly sophisticated emotional landscapes, requiring advanced self-regulation strategies to maintain psychological integrity. My observations revealed something profound. Martha's experience wasn't isolated psychological phenomenon, but universal human struggle. Each frantic movement represented intricate negotiation between external expectations and internal authenticity. Transformative pathways emerge through courageous self-reflection. By interrupting habitual response patterns, individuals reclaim agency, redesigning internal narratives toward more sustainable engagement models. The journey demands vulnerability, requiring us to challenge deeply ingrained survival strategies. Healing begins when we recognize our inherent worth independent of external validation. Our potential transcends performative frameworks, inviting us toward more compassionate, holistic understanding of human experience. As I reflected deeper on Martha's internal struggle, a profound realization emerged about the intricate psychological landscapes we construct to shield ourselves from vulnerability. Performance anxiety isn't merely about external expectations. It's a deeply personal survival mechanism rooted in profound emotional uncertainties. Modern psychological research reveals fascinating insights into what drives our compulsive need to constantly prove ourselves. Attachment theory suggests that individuals who experience conditional love during childhood develop sophisticated emotional armor, transforming service into a complex negotiation of worthiness. We aren't just working, we're desperately seeking validation through every action. My clinical observations have consistently demonstrated how these psychological defense mechanisms operate beneath conscious awareness. People frequently design elaborate behavioral scripts, believing that perpetual productivity will somehow compensate for internal feelings of inadequacy. Each completed task becomes a temporary emotional band-aid, momentarily silencing the inner critic that constantly questions our fundamental value. Neurobiological studies illuminate the physiological underpinnings of this phenomenon. Chronic stress triggers intricate hormonal cascades, particularly elevated cortisol levels that create neurological feedback loops reinforcing anxious behaviors. We're essentially hardwired to interpret stillness as potential threat, transforming rest into a psychological battleground where perceived vulnerability feels dangerous. Societal conditioning plays a significant role in perpetuating these intricate psychological mechanisms. Contemporary culture celebrates hyperproductivity, transforming human experiences into quantifiable metrics. We've developed sophisticated economic frameworks that systematically reward continuous output while simultaneously eroding individual emotional resilience. Indigenous wisdom traditions offer remarkable alternative perspectives. These cultural frameworks understand human engagement as cyclical, recognizing that regenerative periods are as crucial as active phases. Western paradigms frequently misinterpret this natural rhythm, generating unsustainable expectations that gradually compromise individual well-being. Emerging organizational research challenges traditional productivity models. Progressive institutions increasingly recognize that genuine innovation emerges not from constant labor, but from intentional periods of reflection and creative recuperation. By reimagining workplace engagement, we can develop more holistic approaches that honor individuals' psychological complexity. Transformative pathways require courageous self-examination. We must develop sophisticated emotional intelligence capabilities that allow us to interrupt habitual stress response mechanisms. This journey demands radical vulnerability, challenging deeply ingrained survival strategies that no longer serve our authentic growth. Compassionate self-awareness becomes our most powerful intervention. By cultivating mindful awareness, we can gradually dismantle the intricate psychological scaffolding we've constructed to protect ourselves from perceived inadequacy. The real revolution happens not through grand gestures, but through intentional, moment-by-moment choices that honor our inherent worth beyond external validation. I leaned against the weathered stone wall, watching Martha's internal struggle unfold with a compassion born from my own experiences of relentless striving. Her restlessness spoke a language I knew intimately, the desperate rhythm of proving one's worth through ceaseless activity. Professional burnout had taught me something profound about the soul's capacity for self-destruction. We construct elaborate labyrinths of productivity, believing each completed task will finally silence our deepest insecurities. Yet the silence never comes. Instead, we generate increasingly complex performance algorithms, mistaking momentum for meaning. Developmental psychology offers a crucial lens into this phenomenon. Our earliest attachment experiences create fundamental narratives about worthiness. Some of us learn that love is transactional, earned through achievement, maintained through continuous demonstration of value. These childhood scripts become sophisticated survival mechanisms, driving us toward perpetual validation seeking. Neurological research reveals fascinating physiological underpinnings of this dynamic. Chronic overachievement triggers specific neural pathways associated with dopamine reward systems. Each accomplished task releases momentary chemical euphoria, creating addictive feedback loops that reinforce hyperproductive behaviors. We're essentially biochemically conditioning ourselves into exhaustion. Emerging wellness frameworks recognize this systemic challenge. Holistic approaches emphasize regenerative practices, understanding productivity not as constant output, but as cyclical engagement. We're learning to view rest not as weakness, but as strategic recalibration. Intentional pause becomes a radical act of self-preservation. Cultural anthropology provides additional insights. Different societal structures fundamentally reshape individual engagement models. Indigenous communities frequently embed communal restoration practices, recognizing collective well-being as essential survival mechanism. Western individualistic paradigms, conversely, frequently weaponize personal agency into competitive performance metrics. My own journey demanded radical reimagination. I discovered that authentic contribution emerges not from ceaseless doing, but from intentional being. Creativity flourishes in spaciousness. Innovation requires fertile emptiness. Our most profound insights arrive when we surrender control, allowing inspiration to emerge organically. Spiritual traditions across global contexts offer similar wisdom. Meditation practices, contemplative prayer, mindful reflection. These aren't passive experiences, but active regenerative technologies. They represent sophisticated psychological reset mechanisms, enabling profound neurological recalibration. Generational healing becomes possible when we interrupt these inherited patterns. Each intentional pause represents a courageous act of self-love. We're not just changing personal trajectories. We're reshaping collective narratives about human worth, value, and potential. Transformative pathways demand vulnerability. By courageously examining our internal landscapes, we discover something revolutionary. Our fundamental essence transcends external validation. We are inherently valuable, independent of performance, achievement, or productivity. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across Bethany's narrow streets, I found myself drawn deeper into understanding the profound dynamics of Martha's internal struggle. My professional background in counseling had taught me that human behavior rarely emerges from simple motivations. Each gesture carries layers of unspoken emotional complexity. Interpersonal dynamics reveal themselves through seemingly mundane interactions. Martha's frantic movement wasn't merely about hospitality. It represented a sophisticated emotional negotiation. She was broadcasting her worth through service, transforming domestic labor into an intricate communication channel expressing deep-seated psychological needs. Professional burnout research illuminates fascinating psychological mechanisms underlying such behaviors. When individuals consistently externalize their value through continuous productivity, they develop sophisticated adaptive strategies that gradually erode personal boundaries. Martha exemplified this phenomenon. Her service became a performative ritual designed to secure emotional validation. Neurological studies demonstrate how prolonged stress fundamentally rewires cognitive processing. Persistent overactivity creates biochemical feedback loops that reinforce hypervigilant behavioral patterns. Our brain chemistry essentially learns to interpret constant motion as a survival mechanism, transforming temporary coping strategies into entrenched psychological algorithms. Cultural conditioning plays a significant role in shaping these responses. Contemporary societal frameworks frequently conflate personal significance with measurable output, creating invisible psychological pressures that drive individuals toward perpetual demonstration of capability. Martha's experience reflected a broader systemic challenge, the collective narrative that equates human worth with continuous achievement. Developmental psychology offers nuanced insights into these complex emotional landscapes. Early attachment experiences fundamentally shape our understanding of relational dynamics. Some individuals develop intricate emotional strategies that transform service into a sophisticated mechanism of securing belonging and recognition. Emerging wellness frameworks increasingly recognize the importance of understanding these deeper psychological motivations. By developing compassionate self-awareness, we can gradually interrupt habitual response patterns, creating space for more authentic engagement with ourselves and others. Transformative healing requires courageous vulnerability. Recognizing the underlying emotional needs driving our behaviors allows us to develop more sustainable approaches to personal and professional interactions. Martha's experience became a powerful invitation to examine our own unconscious adaptive strategies. My observations that afternoon revealed something extraordinary. Beneath her constant motion lay a profound desire for connection, acknowledgement, and meaningful participation. Understanding these deeper motivations transforms our perspective from judgment to compassionate insight. As twilight settled over Bethany, I recognized that true transformation emerges not through criticism, but through gentle, intentional awareness of our complex inner landscapes. Each moment offers an opportunity to interrupt habitual patterns and choose more authentic ways of engaging with ourselves and the world around us. Reflecting on this intricate journey, I've come to understand that our human experience transcends simple narratives of struggle and redemption. We are living, breathing ecosystems of emotion, constantly negotiating internal landscapes that defy straightforward explanation. The threads of our individual stories interweave with broader tapestries of collective human understanding, creating rich, nuanced pathways of insight that challenge our most fundamental assumptions about worth, purpose, and connection. My observations have revealed something profound. Our deepest transformations emerge not through grand, dramatic shifts, but through subtle, almost imperceptible realignments of consciousness. Like tectonic plates gradually reshaping geological landscapes, our internal worlds undergo continuous, quiet reconstruction, each moment of awareness representing a microscopic yet potentially revolutionary adjustment. The boundary between our perceived limitations and our extraordinary potential is far more permeable than we recognize. We construct elaborate narratives of constraint, believing ourselves trapped within predetermined emotional architectures. Yet, every authentic moment of vulnerability becomes a potential doorway, an invitation to reimagine our fundamental relationship with ourselves and the intricate web of relationships that define our existence. Our cultural conditioning has trained us to view personal growth as a linear trajectory, a sequential progression of achievements and milestones. But true transformation reveals itself as something far more organic, a dynamic, non-linear dance of emergence, retreat, and profound recalibration. We are not machines programmed for consistent output, but living, breathing organisms capable of remarkable regeneration and unexpected resilience. Underlying our most sophisticated defense mechanisms lies a profound longing for genuine connection, not the performative interactions that dominate contemporary social landscapes, but deep, resonant encounters that honor our full, complex humanity. We yearn to be seen, not for our carefully curated external presentations, but for the raw, unvarnished essence that pulses beneath our carefully constructed facades. The journey we've explored together speaks to something far more universal than individual experience. It represents a collective awakening, a gradual recognition that our most profound strength emerges not from relentless striving, but from cultivating spaces of authentic presence. We are learning to interrupt generational patterns of emotional survival, creating new paradigms of engagement that prioritize holistic well-being over mechanistic productivity. As we stand at this precipice of understanding, something remarkable becomes clear. Our individual stories are simultaneously unique and profoundly interconnected. Each moment of courageous self-reflection creates ripple effects that extend far beyond our immediate perception, touching lives and transforming collective consciousness in ways we may never fully comprehend. As the last rays of sunlight filtered through Bethany's dusty streets, I realized our human journey isn't about perfection, but presence. Martha's struggle wasn't unique to her. It's a universal dance we all perform, oscillating between frantic doing and intentional being. Our deepest transformation emerges not through Herculean efforts, but through surrendering our need to constantly prove ourselves. We've been taught that our worth is measured by productivity, that love must be earned through relentless performance. But Jesus' gentle interaction with Martha reveals a radically different truth. Our fundamental value is inherent, not acquired. I've watched countless individuals exhaust themselves chasing external validation, mistaking busyness for significance. We design intricate psychological scaffolding, believing our elaborate constructions will somehow shield us from vulnerability. Yet true strength emerges when we courageously embrace our imperfections, when we learn to rest without guilt. Healing begins the moment we interrupt our habitual narratives of inadequacy. Each deliberate pause becomes a revolutionary act, a quiet rebellion against systems that commodify human experience. We're not machines designed for continuous output, but complex beings capable of profound regeneration, creativity, and connection. Our cultural conditioning has trained us to view stillness as weakness, but indigenous wisdom and emerging psychological research suggest otherwise. Rest isn't passive. It's an active, generative state where innovation, empathy, and authentic engagement are born. By honoring our natural rhythms, we reclaim agency over our internal landscapes. The invitation remains open. Interrupt your performance-driven scripts. Recognize that your worth transcends achievements, deadlines, and external metrics. You are valuable simply because you exist, not because of what you produce, but because of who you are at your core. As darkness settled over Bethany, I understood something profound. Martha's journey mirrors our collective human experience. We're all learning to navigate the delicate balance between service and self-preservation, between showing up for others and honoring our own inner terrain. Our most transformative moments often arrive unexpectedly, in quiet pauses, in gentle redirections, in compassionate self-awareness. By cultivating spaces of intentional presence, we create powerful opportunities for healing, not just for ourselves, but for entire communities yearning for more authentic ways of being. This isn't about achieving perfection. It's about embracing our beautifully imperfect humanity, with all its complexity, vulnerability, and extraordinary potential for growth. We are works in progress, constantly unfolding, perpetually becoming. In the end, love doesn't demand constant performance. It invites us to simply be, fully, unapologetically, gloriously human.